And once again,
We're
it's
back.
the Horror Guys.
We're back. I'm Kevin.
I'm Brian.
And we're going to talk about some horror movies.
Unlike usual, instead of 4 movies and a short, this week we've got 5 movies.
Well, we're kind of cheating because 2 of them are Hamlet.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
That one's a little debatable, actually.
There's a 1948 version of Hamlet, a black and white, that's kind of classic-y. And there's a brand new production of Hamlet, starring Ian McKellen.
Which, if you watch the trailer, it looks very horror-like.
They really played up the horror and thriller element of it. They really tried.
Yeah, we watched. The publicist contacted us and said, we'd like you to watch this Hamlet movie. And the trailer, which is in the show notes, you can watch it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's got the soundtrack, it's the editing, it's all dark. It looked very horror. So we're like, yeah.
Oh, yeah, they cranked up the horror in it somehow, and
oh, boy.
Stylized it.
Oh, boy. Let's not give that one away just
yet. We'll
yet.
not spoil our review yet, yeah.
But Hamlet is a ghost story. It's one of the oldest ghost stories. What do you guys think? Is Shakespeare old? I mean, he's got witches and ghosts and lots of his stories. What do you consider? Would you consider that horror? It certainly was at the time.
It was scary. Yeah. And Macbeth has scary witches in it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hamlet doesn't have any witches.
There's
various Shakespeare
and
things.
Some of his other things have mysterious things and hauntings and magic and weird things going on.
We are generally pretty flexible with our definition of horror, but this is the first time Shakespeare's come up.
But he's got a ghost.
What do y'all think about this? Email us, email@horrorguys.com. Let us know. Is Shakespeare horror?
Yeah.
Well, certainly not all of it, but some might
of them
be
is
stretched that
comedies,
way.
but yeah, the dramatic stuff. Yeah.
But anyway, this week, we've got a good mix of old and new for you this week.
Yeah,
we'll
we do.
start off with the fun Monster in the Basement flick, Baghead,
Baghead.
from last year. I think it just came to Shudder or somewhere just recently, so it's a 23 movie, but it's fresh.
Uh-huh.
Next, we'll take a look at the amazing The Coffee Table, which just came out this past week.
This is one that's been lurking around in Europe for a year and a half.
Yeah.
It's actually a 2022 official date, and we're just getting it in the States now. And boy, was it good.
We looked at the trailer, and it's like, it don't look like much.
We weren't so sure looking at the trailer, but boy, we liked that.
We did like that, yes. We'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah.
And then we'll check in on The Babysitter with When a Stranger Calls from way back in 1979.
The call is coming from within the house.
Spoilers.
Well, yeah. And, that's a classic thing.
Everybody remembers that part.
And I thought that was the main part of the movie. And that's in the first 10 minutes. And then there's an hour and 20 minutes of a movie after that.
What did they do with the rest of the time?
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. And then finally, we'll watch 2 versions of one of the most famous ghost stories of all time. With the
Hamlet.
1948 classic Hamlet, followed by the just-released 2024 version with Ian McKellen.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen him in anything that wasn't good.
Until now.
That's not true. I have seen him in some other stage kind of things that I did not care for.
Okay, yeah.
We tried to watch Waiting for Godot with Patrick Stewart once. 10 minutes in, we both said, no, hell no.
Yeah. Just the script of Waiting for Godot is not for us.
We try to be classy.
Yeah, it's a classic. You're supposed to love it. Yeah.
We try.
Yeah.
And, of course, if you are on our once-a-week mailing list over at horrorbulletin.com, you can also read about Blood and Roses from 1960. If it sounds like it might be a vampire film, you might be right.
You might be.
And The Devil's Partner, also from 1960, which is a little bit weird.
Very weird.
You love the movie poster, but the movie itself was a little misleading.
I'm looking at the poster now. It is the coolest poster. There's a naked woman riding on a centaur, carrying a torch.
And the devil's there
through
too,
a graveyard. Yeah, and there's a pencil drawing devil up in the corner.
Yeah.
But yeah.
None of that happens in the movie.
And okay, when are we going to see the centaur? We never do.
All right, so over at our yet another, this is like the third website, Horror Guys, Horror Bulletin, and now this other one here, hourlongpress.com. We've been putting out free biographies every week. We've done Vincent Price and Peter Lorre and Christopher Lee and Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff and Lon Chaney Jr. and I'm probably forgetting one. Peter Cushing. I always forget Peter Cushing, and he's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
This week, We're getting away from that pattern. We're doing something that's not really horror at all. That was our point of making this whole series. We could just write books on whatever little short
Whatever we
topics
felt like, yeah.
that you can become an expert on a topic in just about an hour or less, because they are all very short reads, 50, 60 pages in a paperback.
Great for Kindle Unlimited.
Perfect for Kindle Unlimited, yes. This one, I got to admit it, I wrote the others. I wrote all those biographies. I didn't write this one.
I wrote this one.
Oh, my.
I made this.
True Horror by Kevin.
Oh, say, can you see? A brief history of the Star-Spangled Banner.
Oh.
Because I thought that sounded
that's not horror
interesting.
at all.
No, it isn't. The Star-Spangled Banner has only been the official national anthem since 1931. Less than 100 years.
I had no idea it was that recent.
We had a whole lot of years without a national anthem.
And a whole lot of other options that could have been chosen.
Yeah. So I took a look starting at the country before it was officially the United States and up through the War of 1812 when Francis Scott Key got the idea for the poem, and how did it become a song from then? And how did it become the national anthem?
And more importantly, how did it get started on all those baseball games?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll read all about it.
Yeah. Go over to Hour Long Press, hour long with an H because it takes about an hour long to read it, hourlongpress.com. There's a link there that'll take you right to this place on Amazon where you can get the ebook for free for the next 5 days until, I think, Tuesday sometime. Or you can buy it as an ebook after that, or Kindle Unlimited, or paperback even.
And check out all those other titles on Hour Long Books, too.
Yeah, we got all those horror biographies are still there. They're not free anymore, but they're inexpensive. And if you have that Kindle Unlimited subscription, they're still free. They always will be.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this week on the Horror Guys podcast, we've got Baghead from 2023, directed by Alberto Corredor, written by Christina Pamies, Bryce McGuire, and Lurkin Riley. Written by those people. Stars Freya Allen, Jeremy Irvine, and Ruby Barker. Hour and 34 minutes. Trailer in the show notes. And I gotta say, the movie poster on this doesn't look like much.
No, it doesn't. It's a nasty looking hand, witchy looking hand.
Pulling a bag off.
Yeah.
Well, spoiler free, what happens?
Well, this was a tasty snack of a movie with a very creepy situation that the characters are dealing with. It's got a great setting, an effective cast, and a story that moved really well. The rules that must be followed are used really nicely, and we liked this one a lot.
I was immediately reminded of Talk to Me from late last year that we both also liked a lot.
It does have some of that. Talking to the dead,
Talking
there's
to the dead,
specific
the rules.
And if
yeah.
you break the rules, there's real problems, and there's powers that are working against you. And yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, if you like Talk to Me, just skip ahead and don't listen to our spoiler review. Well, we're not going to spoil it to death. It's fairly recent
because it's so new. Yeah.
Yeah, but if
We'll
you
give you a little
if you
taste
like
and-
Talk to Me, you definitely want to see this one. It's a similar vibe.
Along those lines, but different.
All
yeah.
different. Yeah, there's no hand.
No.
Well, not to spoil it to death, but someone's banging on the door at the inn, which is closed. Actually, it kind of looks out of business.
Yeah, it's real shady looking.
The proprietor, Owen, tells the young man that he can't see her and to go home. The old man then explains to a video camera that the property comes with a special tenant, and she comes with the property. You cannot let her out of the basement. You don't know how dangerous she is, but you will. Tonight, her curse ends with me. But he's making the video just in case he fails. He then goes into the basement, pours kerosene all around, intending to burn her and the inn. Instead, he manages to set himself on fire, and she just watches it happen. Then poofs the fire out after he's dead. And then
And credits
roll.
Quite
Okay,
a
that was
start.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Iris and Katie break into Iris's place after she was evicted. She's got nowhere to go now but Katie's house. Iris then gets a phone call from a solicitor. Her father has died. She travels home to identify the body, and it's a burned-up mess. Yeah, we know who that was.
Mm-hmm.
The solicitor takes her to the Queen's Head, an old pub at the beginning that her father owned. We've seen that before, too. He assumes she'll want to sell the rundown old place. The lawyer's very sketchy looking, and he just wants to sell the old bar. Iris has nowhere to go and decides to stay there for the night. Well, she wakes up in the middle of the night to find a man inside the house. Who thought that was a good idea?
Mm-hmm.
It's the young man who wanted to see her at the beginning.
He's back, persistent.
He introduces himself as Neil, and he says, I want to see her. Iris is like, see who?
You know, the lady in the basement.
He
What?
offers her £2,000 to see the woman in the basement. The woman in the basement is news to Iris, but there is a door back there that's locked.
Mm-hmm.
Please, I need to see my wife. I'm not crazy. Other people come here for the same reason. Take the money. I know what to do. She takes his money, tells him to come back tomorrow night. Well, then she goes back to the solicitor and tells him she wants to keep the place. He has lots of paperwork, including a special page that needs to be signed with an old fountain pen. It's like an old papyrus scroll kind of thing.
And there's lots of names on it already.
And he explains that there are traditions.
She's adding her name to the list.
Well, he also gives her the videotape that her father left for the new owner, along with the keys to the basement.
Aha.
Well, Katie then arrives in town, and Iris tells her about Neil and the basement. She finds the keys and the legal paperwork, and now she can open that basement door. Ooh, what do you suppose is down there?
Huh.
Neil arrives, and the three of them go down into the basement. Neil seems to know a little bit of the layout and what's going on down there, and we see that there's a big hole broken through a brick wall, and Neil tells whoever's in there to come out.
We should leave it there.
We should leave it there.
Yeah, stuff happens after that. And then more stuff.
There's
and then even more stuff.
There's something mysterious in that hole, I bet.
There is.
All right, well, let's see.
It's quite a long description that we wrote up on it.
My top comment here. A very wise man once said, when someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes.
Yeah.
That was in Ghostbusters.
A reference to Ghostbusters when Zool asks Ray if he's a god.
The same thing comes up here.
There's a similar moment where she answers no, and that's a bad answer.
Okay, well, this reminds both of us of Talk to Me from 2023 in many ways. Communication with the dead for some very specific rules and risks. The setting is very cool. Who wouldn't want to inherit a big old place like that?
Yeah, it's really a big, beautiful building.
And making a few bucks from renting out the monster in the basement seems like a good idea as well. What could go wrong?
Lots of things, it turns out.
Yeah. And we both give this a very strong recommendation.
Yeah, I think it's my favorite of the week, maybe. But I like the coffee table so much, too. It's kind of a toss-up.
I think both of those movies are going to be on the short list for best of the year.
Yep, I think so.
Baghead is definitely a little more of a traditional horror movie than The Coffee Table.
Uh-huh.
But let's get it over with. Let's talk about The Coffee Table. Came out in 2022.
La Mesita del Comedor.
Spain? Mexico?
Yeah, it's Spanish.
Well, I know it's Spanish language.
I mean European Spanish. Yeah. Uh-huh.
A.K.A. La Mesita del Comedor. Directed by Kaya Casas. Written by Cristina Borobia and Kai Casas. Stars David Pareja, Estefania de los Santos, and Josep Maria Riera. Hour and 31 minutes. All right, well, this one is just released this week. I think it's on video on demand somewhere.
If you use Just Watch, you should be able to find it.
Just Watch. I will type in Just Watch right now.
Okay.
JustWatch.com. The Coffee Table. There it is. And it is currently available on Prime Video.
Okay.
All right, Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime.
All right, well, there's horror comedies, and then there's seriously dark horror comedies where the situation is just so awful and the humor is so primal that you snicker and almost feel guilty for laughing at it. Yeah, this was so much more than the trailer let on. You watch the trailer, and there's this sort of comical scene with this couple talking to the salesman about this coffee table.
And
it's
that is
going to change your life.
And that is a very comical scene at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're very close to the beginning. The three of them are talking this table, and yeah.
Change your life for the better if you buy this coffee table. And it does change their lives.
Yeah, it does.
Well, we were both pleasantly surprised by this one and thought it was terrific. And this is easily my favorite of the week. Although it's kind of iffy on the horror, exactly.
Well,
it's a horrible situation for sure.
Certainly is, yeah. Well, To not spoil it?
No, definitely
Not spoil it, yeah. Well, a woman lays back and screams. She's giving birth. And much later, with the baby in a stroller, she and her husband go out and buy a coffee table. The salesman makes a big deal out of it, saying it will change your life for the better. It'll fill your home with happiness.
This guy, he's a hoot.
Yeah, he is. Well, Jesus wants to buy it, but Maria says it's ugly. And it is kind of a gold, almost Art Deco of two women holding up a glass.
It's tacky.
Or luxurious, depending on how you look at it.
It doesn't match their apartment.
No, it's very Art Deco. Well, there's a whole debate between them and the vendor, but in the end, Jesus wants it. He wins out. She got the baby. Least she can do is let him have the table. And credits roll.
You got that baby that you wanted all this time. Let me have this table.
And we go to Jesus lugging the big box up many flights of stairs to their apartment. Some assembly required. Their neighbor has a very young daughter, Ruth, who has a crush on Jesus. But he's not at all interested. I mean, she's just a child and trying to stay out of trouble. She's 13. Well, she wants the two of them to run away together. She's obsessed. Maria and Jesus talk about the baby's name. Was that
Cayetano.
Cayetano is how you pronounce it.
Which he says that's a crap name.
Yeah. And so they debate about that. They banter back and forth. And he's assembling the table. There's a screw missing from the table. So Jesus, he's ticked off. He paid that much for it. He wants it complete. He calls the store for another. And the table, the couple argues again, hilariously. Not serious argument, just bantering back and forth. She ends up calling his brother a pedo vegan and then goes shopping.
Well, if you're going to be a pedo, be a vegan too.
Yeah. Well, his brother...
we should stop at this point.
Yeah.
Well, his brother has married or is dating someone very young.
Yeah, who's a vegan.
Not really pedo, but
no,
18 or something.
She's an
like
adult,
that.
but much younger than him. Yeah. Well, she goes shopping, and Jesus is there, and things happen. And then more happens. Yeah.
This honestly did not look like much from the trailer, but it is darkly hilarious from the beginning to the end. I mean, once you've seen it, you'll know why the trailer is so lame.
Because they couldn't give things away. Yeah.
The budget here was obviously pretty low. It's just a bunch of people walking around an apartment. But they made really good use of what they had with a very interesting situation.
Yeah.
A couple of times, they hinted that they were going to go down the same path as the Telltale Heart, but they never quite committed to that idea. So it cuts away to different things in the middle, and it gets weird.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, it's a very simple situation, and it just goes on, and getting
gets
more
worse
and more
worse.
uncomfortably intense with every minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just wonder, how far can this go?
Well, we find out.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And it is very good.
Highly recommend this one. Yeah. And it's in Spanish with subtitles. Totally worth the read. Yeah. Yeah. You should watch it.
When a stranger calls, is that the phone ringing? You should answer it.
Ring,
You never know where it's coming from.
ring, ring.
Actually, in this case, everyone knows where it's coming from.
Yeah, we do.
1979, When a Stranger Calls. Directed by Fred Walton, written by him and Steve Fecky. Stars Carol Kane, Charles Durning, Colleen Dewhurst, and Tony Beckley. Hour and 37 minutes. Spoiler free.
Spoiler free? Well, there's a stranger that calls. This surprised us because, like we mentioned, we knew about the classic reveal in this.
And we thought this was a major spoiler for the ending.
Yeah.
But it's not.
It's not. There's the babysitter, and she's alone in the house, and things are getting more and more tense. This guy keeps calling, harassing. Have you checked on the children? Have you checked? You should go upstairs and check on the children. I'm watching you. And then the reveal
We both saw this when it came out, like 40 years ago.
It's coming from inside the house. And so she runs out, and the police are there, and she's okay.
And we're both 10 minutes in, and we're like, wait, there's more?
Yeah.
We thought that was the story.
There's practically a whole movie to go after that, where there's all kinds of craziness that continues. This was a sandwich of good stuff at the start and the ending, kind of a long stretch in the middle that's a little bit more of just a slow-paced detective story. It was pretty good overall, but kind of low-key on horror.
Yeah,
Low-key.
It had a really good opening.
Very suspenseful. And the finish, I thought, was nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Jill Johnson walks through the neighborhood after dark. Dr. Mandrakis opens the door. Jill is here to babysit their child. She talks to her friend Nancy on the phone, and she asks Nancy to give Bobby her number there. So she's expecting a call.
Mm-hmm.
A little while later, she gets a hang-up call. A second call asks, "Have you checked the children?" Remember, this is back before caller ID and cell phones.
Right, yeah.
The phone rings, you pick it up, you don't know who it's going to
you
be.
have no choice. Yeah, it's a surprise.
I know, anybody under 40 is like, no.
What? That used to be a thing? Yeah, it was awful.
She hears a noise in the kitchen, but it's just the ice maker. The phone rings one more time, and he asks the same question again. "Have you checked the children?" She thinks it's Bobby pranking her, but the voice doesn't respond to that. Does she check on the children like any sensible person would? No, she has a drink instead. Jill calls the restaurant where Dr. Mandrakis is having dinner, but he's already left. Next, she calls the police and talks to Sergeant Sacker. Since the guy hasn't made any threats, the cop don't take it too seriously. The man calls back and asks, "Why haven't you checked the children?" Does she check the children at this point?
No.
Almost.
Almost.
She starts going up the steps when the phone rings again. She calls the police and they offer to trace the call if he calls back. When he calls back again, she tries to keep him on the line so the trace will go through. This time, he gets pretty graphic in what he wants to do with her. The policeman calls back. "The call is coming from inside the house. Get out right now." She looks upstairs and sees someone up there. She opens the front door and sees a scary man standing there.
Ah!
Oh, it's John Clifford, the detective.
Okay.
Well, the police officers tell Clifford that the children were upstairs dead. They caught the guy who did it. Jill has survived, but she is traumatized. And we both, as we said before, we both assumed that that was the plot of the movie.
I thought that was a whole movie of that.
This is the memorable part of the movie.
That was the beginning.
But we're like 10, 15 minutes in tops.
And this was a good part of the movie. And then we get into more of a detective story.
7 years later, Detective Clifford goes to see Dr. Mandrakis. "Have you heard about Kurt Duncan's escape? Do you think the police will find him?" Clifford is a PI now, and Mandrakis wants Kurt, the murderer, found. It was his kids that were killed.
Mm-hmm.
Clifford questions the doctor in charge of the asylum that Kurt Duncan escaped from. She plays a tape of Duncan, and yeah, he's still all kinds of crazy. We cut to a bar where Kurt Duncan talks to a woman named Tracy. He's weird, and the woman is not interested. He's persistent to the point of being annoying. He gets into a fight, and some guy beats him up pretty badly. The woman goes home, and Kurt follows her. He forces his way into her apartment, and she's friendly at first, but things take a turn when he gets creepier and creepier. Eventually he leaves and tries to come back, but she has locked the door.
Good thing.
Clifford makes calls and researches the files. Meanwhile, Kurt wanders around town, hanging with the homeless. He pays a visit to Tracy, the woman Kurt was with last night. Clifford tells his cop friend that he wants to kill Kurt to make sure it never happens again. "Would do it good," Charlie warns. These are not typical ex-cops.
No, they're not.
Tracy goes back to the same bar, hoping to run into Kurt again, and we see that Clifford is following her. She doesn't spot Kurt and eventually goes home. And we see that Kurt is... Where is he?
Inside the house.
Again. Kurt jumps out and grabs her. "I want you to be my friend, okay?" She screams, and Clifford pursues him, but Kurt gets away. Later, Kurt looks at himself in a mirror and remembers all the things he's done. He breaks down crying. One of the homeless men spots Kurt and tells Clifford where to find him. Clifford checks out the men in the shelter, but Kurt spots him first. Clifford follows Kurt to an old warehouse, but that soon devolves into a foot chase, and Kurt escapes once again.
And Clifford is not built for foot chases.
He's Charles Durning. You know what he looks like.
Rather chunky.
Portly.
Yeah.
To be generous.
Yeah.
We cut back to a big house. Former babysitter Jill is inside with her own 2 children now, and her husband calls to say he's taking her out to dinner tonight. Sharon is the babysitter for her kids. The whole scene is very similar to the opening.
Uh-oh.
Jill gets a phone call at the restaurant. "Have you checked the children?" She freaks out and starts screaming right there in the restaurant. Husband Stephen calls Sharon, but she says, "No, everything's fine." The police come to see what all the screaming is about, and then the phone line goes dead.
Uh-oh.
The police race to Jill's house, where the children are fine. Everything is fine, and Sharon knows nothing about any problems.
Okay.
Jill's not satisfied when the police leave. Stephen's got a gun. Meanwhile, Detective Charlie hears about Jill's call and lets Clifford know about it. Clifford tries to call Jill, but the phone has been disconnected. At Jill's house, the power goes out, and she checks out the kids. Is there someone in the closet? No. She looks at her bed, and there's Kurt laying next to her, who starts raving and screaming, until Clifford comes in shooting. Stephen's unconscious in the closet, but everyone else is just fine otherwise.
And that really surprised me at the end, that was Kurt in bed with her.
Yeah.
Had taken Stephen's place.
Carol Kane was 27 years old here, playing a teenager.
That's never been done before.
No. But we were like, oh, look, she was young once. No,
But
she
not
really
teenager,
wasn't.
yeah.
We both knew about the call coming from inside the house, but we didn't realize that was just the opening scene. On the other hand, after that introductory scene, we get an hour and a half of detective movie with Charles Durning as a grouchy PI hunting the killer. Up until the last 20 minutes, the rest of the film is decidedly more crime thriller than horror. The beginning and the ending were good, but the middle, I thought, was kind of dull.
I agree.
There's a reason we only remember the beginning parts.
Uh-huh.
All right, which takes us to 1948, way back in time, Hamlet, where we watch a story from the 1600s that actually took place in the 1400s.
Right.
It's the time warp weekend, which makes it a lot more exciting than it really was.
This was directed by Laurence Olivier, which I did not know. I had seen bits of this before, written by William Shakespeare and Laurence Olivier, starring Laurence Olivier, Gene Simmons, Norman Wooland, Felix Aylmer, Terrence Morgan, and who
2
else?
hours, 34 minutes.
Who else is in it? Two.
Oh,
Two
yeah, it's got
somebodies.
Christopher Lee.
Uh-huh.
It's got Peter Cushing.
Yeah.
In very early roles.
Yeah.
They're not exactly stars, but they're in it.
You know, you don't want to, we got a spoiler-free judgment zone. It's such a new work. You don't want to, spoil it, but go ahead and
I think most people had to read this one in high school.
Go ahead and read it for us.
It's a little slow and a lot talky for modern viewers. Which, I mean, I have not seen a stage production of Hamlet, but I imagine it's probably not too far removed from that.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty close. Yeah, I've seen it.
They did
on
cut out a
stage.
few pieces of the play.
They did, yeah.
There's no
A little-
Rosencrantz and the other guy,
a little
Guildenstern.
editing. And what's his face doesn't come in at the end. Fortinbras
Yeah, that
doesn't
too.
come in
Yeah.
at the end. Yeah.
But it's very well put together and very well acted. The speech is in a dated style. Yes, forsooth, it truly is. And I should read the whole thing in Old English, but I can't do
you
it.
should,
I just
yeah.
can't do it. But it takes a little deciphering sometimes, but it's clear enough and easy to understand. Remember that. It's clear and easy to understand.
Yes.
In 10 minutes,
Their
we'll talk about the
dictation
new
is
version.
impeccable. You can hear every word clearly.
Horror-wise, it does have a ghost. So, yeah, it's crossed the line.
Uh-huh.
And Peter Cushing has a nice little role very early in his career. Christopher Lee, well, he's there too somewhere, we're told, but I didn't see him.
We thought we spotted him once. Yeah, there's guards, there's many guards, and he's one of them.
Peter Cushing has a real role. He talks and acts, and you're going to spot him.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Christopher Lee, he's a spear carrier.
Somewhere in there.
He's somewhere back there with a helmet on, probably.
He might have had facial hair. Yeah.
Might have, maybe.
Yeah, the one guy I think was him with facial hair, but it's hard to tell.
It's very hard to tell,
Yeah.
but he was there. If you are a fan of Shakespeare or are curious about sampling some, this is a really good one to check out. Mm-hmm. And from what I hear of the people that are more knowledgeable about me on these things, this is probably the best version of Hamlet.
It's a good one.
Some people like
of the stuff I've seen.
Kenneth Branagh's version.
I actually prefer Kenneth Branagh's version.
Okay.
But this would be my number 2. Yeah.
Well, for many years. Well, this was the first filmed version of it, by the way.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, it was,
Okay.
yes.
No, I did not know that.
Well, this is the tragedy of a man who could make up his mind. Not make up his
not make up
mind,
his
we're
mind.
told. We open on it. What did he not make up his mind about?
Whether to be or not to be, whether he loved Ophelia or not, whether he wanted to commit to killing his uncle or not, there was a lot of wishy-washiness.
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
whether he wanted to go full crazy or not. And I mean, you kind of, the more you look at it, the more you think, yeah.
I was too busy deciphering the
there was
language to
quite a
actually
few
figure out what
things
they were
that
saying.
that he waffled on when you really think about it.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we open on a group of guards and Horatio who have come to the tower to see this thing that some have reported seeing. Well, they see it. It's the ghost of dead King Hamlet. It looks at them ominously and then vanishes without speaking. Well, the new king is Hamlet's uncle, Claudius, who has married dead King Hamlet's wife, Gertrude, the queen. Laertes is there, and he wants permission to go back to France. Polonius, Laertes' father, gives his approval. Young Hamlet is moody and doesn't participate in the celebration. His mother urges him to get over his father's death, as everyone dies and life goes on. He's like the first emo.
Mm-hmm. Very much
The
so.
king says he feels that Hamlet is like his own son.
Hamlet is not looking at Claudius as a dad yet.
No.
No.
Laertes says goodbye to his sister Ophelia before Polonius gives him some traveling advice. Ophelia tells her father that Hamlet has been showing interest in her, but he forbids her to even talk to him. Now, I'm not quite clear. What did he have against Hamlet? Hamlet is a prince.
Yeah,
and he's available and rich and...
Yeah, why not? Why wouldn't he want his daughter to marry
Yeah,
right
he's weird.
directly into the royal family? Yeah, I mean, he's a little odd, but yeah, come on, he's not that bad.
Royalty often is.
At least at this point, he wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Horatio comes to Hamlet and tells about seeing his father's ghost. Naturally, Hamlet wants to join them tonight and see it for himself. Sure enough, the ghost appears, and Hamlet goes to talk to it alone. The ghost says he was murdered by his own brother, Claudius, who poured hemlock in his ear. I don't know if you can die from that or not, but it's in the play.
It's in the play, and he did.
Hamlet then swears vengeance against the new king. Polonius complains to the king and queen about Hamlet. He sent a love letter to Ophelia, and the old man wants it stopped. Hamlet overhears all this, but pretends that he didn't. Later, he talks to Ophelia, and they argue. Get thee to a nunnery. What? If you don't want to date me, you belong in a. You should be a nun.
It's me or a nun. Yeah.
Later, Polonius accuses Hamlet of being insane to the king, who doesn't disagree. Hamlet is kind of weird.
Mm-hmm. But how much is he faking it, and how much is real? It's hard to tell.
Hamlet considers suicide. To be or not to be.
That is the question.
Which in the later version of 2024, he's just sitting at a coffee table talking about this, and the line does not have the same effect.
Here he's standing on the edge of a cliff looking down at the ocean down below.
Yeah, but he decides against it.
Yeah.
Polonius tells Hamlet that a bunch of actors have arrived, and that cheers him up a bit. Hamlet then talks to the lead actor and gives him some instructions and a revived script for a classic play.
Uh-oh.
The king and queen come to the show, as does Ophelia and pretty much everyone else, and Hamlet hits on her again. The play begins, and it's essentially a reenactment of Claudius killing old King Hamlet by pouring the poison in his ear. Claudius takes the hint, and he is not amused. Everyone runs out of the theater in a panic.
Yeah, that is such a pandemonium. Like, what the heck's everybody panicking for?
The king starts yelling, "Lights! Light!" I don't know, maybe they thought somebody killed somebody.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hamlet goes to his mother's quarters to talk, and Polonius hides in the closet to spy on what's being said. Hamlet and his mother argue, but then Hamlet sees something moving in the closet, and he stabs in there, thinking he's killed the king. But no, it's just Polonius.
Oopsie.
He's about to kill his own mother as well, but his father's ghost appears just then and distracts him. He later boasts about it to the king, who starts plotting Hamlet's death on an upcoming trip to England. Ophelia takes her father's death badly and starts acting crazy, singing for no reason. Laertes returns home from France, wanting answers about his father's murder. Also, he finds that his sister has gone mad from grief. She eventually drowns herself in the river. The king, queen, and Horatio get messages from Hamlet. Pirates have attacked his ship on the way to England and took him prisoner, so the assassination didn't happen.
Yeah, lucky him.
I got captured by pirates. Oh, yay me.
Yay, he had an adventure instead.
Horatio goes and pays the ransom to get Hamlet freed, and they return just in time for Ophelia's funeral. Since she's a suicide, her funeral is small and the priest is not forgiving. Laertes blames Hamlet for his sister's death, and there's a fight. The king talks to Laertes and talks him into doing a duel with Hamlet.
Do it in a civilized way.
He plans to make sure that Hamlet has an accident during the fight. Yes, then Osric comes to Hamlet and Horatio and brings an invitation to a duel. It's an offer that Hamlet cannot refuse.
And this is Peter Cushing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's a fun character.
He's a very fun. He made the most out of a small role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone flies in as the duel gets set up. The king drinks to Hamlet in an elaborate toast, and then the battle starts. Hamlet and Laertes cross swords and fight as Osric referees. The king has poisoned Hamlet's drink, but he's too busy to try any.
Yeah, the king drinks some, and then he says, "Oh, look, Hamlet, I have this pearl to honor you. This pearl represents yada yada," and plunks it in the wine.
It's poison. Everybody knows it's poison.
That's how he poisoned it, yeah.
The queen, however, drinks what's in the cup, and it looks like she knows what's in there and just willfully embraces it.
Yeah, by this point, Hamlet has made her aware that it was, or at least suspicious, and she's starting to figure out that it probably was Claudius that killed her husband, and she's trapped, and she's not loving Claudius anymore and can't get out of it, and so she's got some motivation here where she looks at the poison and says, "Yeah,
Which Claudius knows about the poison on the sword. Mm-hmm. Why do the cup too?
Making sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Hamlet and Laertes go another round.
Yeah, Laertes has put poison on the tip of his blade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both injuring each other with a poison blade.
Yeah, that doesn't go so well. Laertes does slash him, but then Hamlet gets the blade himself in the tussle,
slashes him back bigger.
And slashes him back, and yeah, so they're both poisoned.
The queen then keels over dead. Laertes blames the king's treachery before he dies, so Hamlet stabs Claudius to death repeatedly.
Yeah, he did.
He's very dead.
Yeah.
Hamlet then manages to get out one more short speech before he, too, dies from the poison. The end. Happily ever after, if you're Horatio.
Yeah, standing there. Now what do I do? Can I be king now? There's nobody left.
We don't know who's going to be king next.
No.
Well, it's one of the oldest ghost stories that's still popular today. This won the Academy Award for Best Actor, Best Picture, Best Art Direction, Best Music, and Best Costume Design.
Dang.
That's a lot of best.
That was a lot of awards.
Gene Simmons was nominated for Best Actress as in a supporting role, as was Laurence Olivier for Best Director, but it didn't win those two. And on the horror side of things, beyond the ghost and the murders, the film also features early roles by Christopher Lee as an uncredited spear carrier and Peter Cushing as Osric. They're both small roles, but this was the first of 22 films they did together. Actually, I never did spot Lee in the crowd, but Cushing's role was bigger than we expected. The first thing we noticed is this one is that they're all speaking Shakespearean English, but slowly and clearly enough that it's all entirely understandable and easy enough to follow. You got to pay attention, but it's not a tough watch. It's better than subtitles.
Yeah, it was.
The costumes are impressive, but the sets are really kind of cheap. Probably what you expect for that time period, but it looked
cardboardy.
Yeah,
looked kind of stylized and
Doctor Who at the time
sometimes.
would feel right at home.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the look they were going for on purpose, though.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
They could have done it on location somewhere.
Yeah.
They did cut out a few characters and scenes from the original play, but the main plot is intact. It's slow-paced and probably a little draggy for modern viewers, but you get most of the story here, and again, it's easy to follow.
Yeah, if you want to check out some Shakespeare, this is one to check out.
It's kind of dated, but it's very good for what it is.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
All right, which takes us to 2024's Hamlet.
Which I didn't enjoy as much.
Which just came out this past week also. Directed, or actually, I guess it's been on DVD for a little while. It's February.
But they're pushing it now. Yeah.
Directed by Sean Matthias, written by William Shakespeare. Who's rolling over in his grave, probably.
Oh, it wasn't that bad.
Stars Ian McKellen, Jenny Seagrove, Jonathan Hyde, Stephen Burkhoff, and Francesca Annis. Lots of talent here. Hour and 57 minutes, so it's a little shorter than the other one.
Yeah, they trimmed some things here and there.
Yeah. Spoiler free. The trailer for this makes it look a lot more thrilling and bordering on horror than it actually was. Really, we're not going to recommend the movie, but watch the trailer and see if you agree with us. Mm-hmm. Does this look like it should be a horror? I mean, it's the same story, but they could focus on the scary bits more. And it looks like they did.
Yeah.
It's not awful, but we kept thinking it should have been better than it was. I mean, Ian McKellen and Shakespeare, that's like bacon and eggs, isn't it?
It should be a winning combination.
Age, race, and gender were swapped around some in the casting, most notably with 84-year-old Ian McKellen playing young 30-year-old Hamlet. Which,
That in itself could have worked.
yeah, but he's not what he used to be, I think.
Yeah.
He's a little mush-mouthed and hard to understand at times. You'd think this... Which may not be him. I was thinking later, maybe it's the sound editor or the sound guy.
Mm-hmm.
But, oh, boy, it's hard to understand what's going on here sometimes.
And just throwing it in now, because I don't know if we mention it later, too, he was getting out of breath.
Yeah, there were a couple of...
A couple notable points, long monologues, and... Yeah, he was showing his age, I thought.
There was one scene where he's giving a monologue walking down some steps, and by the time I didn't think he was going to make it to the bottom. You could see him huffing and puffing.
Yeah, I could see him working at it. Yeah.
So I don't know if they didn't have enough takes, if he just couldn't do it, or if the director
wanted it as one monologue, I guess. Yeah.
Well, take a retake if it's going to be that bad.
I thought it was too obvious.
Yeah, he was geezer huffing there. It's set, well, in my opinion, the worst part of this is it's set in modern times, in a theater mostly, which sounds like it ought to be interesting.
Well, it was kind of interesting.
You got a king and a queen in the theater and murders in the theater, do you?
I mean, it's not a theater production because it's like a closed theater.
Yeah.
It's just these people in the theater doing this for some reason.
But it takes place like in the bathrooms and the dressing rooms. It's not an on-stage
not just
theater.
on stage, right? In the audience
throughout
portions
the
and
theater.
Throughout the building, yeah. And they run through the halls sometimes.
There's a word for what this reminds me of. It's pretentious.
Say it. Okay.
Pretense. It's by theater geeks for theater geeks. If you do not know every word in and out of Hamlet memorized, you're not going to understand what the hell he's saying. You're going to have a hard time following the plot. And just the scenes. I mean, who are these people in this theater?
Mm-hmm. And why were they? Yeah.
Plus, there's an opening scene where he's walking around outside in the black and white world. And it looks like he looks like a homeless guy. And he comes into the theater, and suddenly he's the prince.
Yeah.
What was up with that? They never really followed up on that.
Maybe the whole thing was his fantasy.
It kind of hints.
I don't know.
It kind of hints also in the beginning that COVID had something to do with it.
Yeah, COVID,
but this movie's
the theater was closed.
But that was 4 years ago. We're past that point.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, overall, I thought it was a little bit on the sluggy side. Not as good as the other one. And I'll tell you, we watched this one first, and I'm like, Hamlet should be better than this, which is why we watched the Olivier version, which is far better and easier to understand, too.
Yeah.
This one's in color. It's got a soundtrack. It's got good modern visuals.
And modern things, I mean, you know...
But it does not hold a candle to the 70-year-old version.
It's clearly modern day. I mean, like you're using video cameras and, modern equipment.
Yes,
and,
yeah. All right, well, we've already covered the basic plot in the previous movie, but go ahead and tell us what happens in this one, because it's a little different.
Yeah, I'll kind of skim over
Normally,
it.
we don't spoil the modern movies, but it's freaking Hamlet. You know what happens.
Yeah, the story is very basically the same. Yeah. It's 2020, and theaters across the globe have closed. Hamlet, in a black and white world, looks in at the closed theater, and he doesn't look happy about it. As he walks away, someone on a nearby rooftop watches him in binoculars.
Who was that, by the way?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah. He finds a way inside where everything comes to life in color as credits roll.
Because, only in the theater is there a real world with color and joy and happiness, like in Hamlet?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
It's not a happy story.
Well, we return to a funeral, which also kind of seems to be the wedding proposal and ceremony all going on at once. Hamlet's father, the king, has died, and his uncle has taken over as king, and he has also taken the queen, the widow, as his new wife. Another student, Horatio, comes in to visit Hamlet. He thinks he's seen the king in the middle of the night, a vision. Hamlet wants to stay up late and see that tonight. Well, the Laertes is getting ready for a show when his father comes in for a visit. Ophelia is there as well, and he wants to know what's up. She says Hamlet is romantically interested in her. Well, Horatio and Hamlet see the ghost of his father outside that night. The ghost calls it a murder most foul.
Ooh, I got that reference.
And Hamlet swears revenge. He blames Hamlet's uncle Claudius. After that, Hamlet swears his friends to secrecy.
Okay, a murder most foul, and the other one said, "Get thee to a nunnery."
Mm-hmm.
There are about 1,000 quotable lines in here that you've heard before in both versions.
And some you might not even realize they came from Hamlet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
every time I hear this, there's like, oh yeah, that's where that came from.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there's lot of things here.
Yep. Well, Ophelia tells her father about a strange man she encountered. And the father reads Hamlet's love letter to Ophelia, to the new king Claudius, and Queen Gertrude. He doesn't much like Hamlet, and they're kind of concerned about this romance, too. Hamlet meets up with Ophelia later, and she thanks him for his gift and letters, which she must return. He denies sending them, but of course she knows. Well, her father Polonius and Claudius listen from the shadows. Claudius has dinner with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, two of Hamlet's friends. He wants them to spy on Hamlet to see why he's been acting so strangely. Meanwhile, Hamlet and Polonius, Ophelia's father, have a talk. Hamlet wants Polonius to think he's gone insane. And then Rosencrantz and Guildenstern show up, and he knows that someone has sent them.
Why are you guys really here?
Yeah, he's pretty savvy onto it. Polonius and Hamlet watch the rehearsal for a play, and Polonius mutters, "This is too long."
Oh yeah, it was. I was checking my watch by this point.
Yeah, Brian was. Yeah. Afterward, they put on a play for the king and the queen and the rest of the characters. And Hamlet's play is about someone assassinating the king and taking his place and taking his wife. The murders look suspiciously like the current king and queen. When called out on it, Hamlet says, no, he's just producing something that happened in Vienna. Except the king knows, and he gets angry and storms out. Hamlet tells us he could kill the king right now, but he'll wait for a better time. Well, and part of it, this is a classic scene, too, where the king is confessing, and he's knelt in prayer, and Hamlet's like, no, I can't kill him now. He'll go straight to heaven. He's praying. So, yeah. Well, he goes to talk to his mother and stabs Polonius, thinking it was Claudius hiding in the closet in the wardrobe. He argues with his mother till his father's ghost shows up again. But Gertrude doesn't see anything. She swears she doesn't know anything about his father's murder. Well, Gertrude tells all to Claudius, who sees Hamlet as a threat now. So he sends Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to catch Hamlet in disposing of Polonius's body. The king wants Hamlet exiled to England, where he'll be killed. Ophelia then sings.
Boy, she's bad, too.
And might have been intentional, but I don't know. She has a guitar, and she's, kind of doing this folksy kind of thing, and it was pretty awful.
I think if she was supposed to be bad,
crazy too, so
I think if she was supposed to be bad, somebody would have commented on it.
Okay.
I think just really poorly done.
Yeah, or maybe they're just looking at her with sympathy because she's so nuts at this point.
Yeah, the funny part is I could understand the words of her song more than much of what Ian McKellen was saying.
Sometimes, yeah. Well, she learns of the king's plot to have Hamlet killed and wants to send him a warning, but it's too late. And instead, fortunately, he's captured by pirates on the way.
Arr!
Yeah.
That should be a movie in itself.
And the ransom is paid, and, well, then he's back again. Well, the queen freaks out, hearing that Ophelia has killed herself. Hamlet returns just as the funeral is in progress. Hamlet yells at Laertes, who thinks this is all Hamlet's fault, the whole Ophelia thing. And the king talks to Laertes, puts him up to killing Hamlet in a duel. Hamlet is eager to accept, but Horatio warns him that it's a trap. And Hamlet and Laertes have a fencing tournament. The king offers Hamlet drugged wine, but he doesn't take it. The queen takes the drink and chugs it instead. Hamlet and Laertes fight. He gets slashed with his own poisoned blade after slicing Hamlet.
Now, in the previous one, the queen was pretty clearly aware that it was poison.
Here, it
this
didn't
one,
look like
I don't
she was.
think so. No.
Yeah, it's like, oh, wine, gimme.
Accidental.
Yeah, chug. Yeah. Well, the queen dies. Laertes dies. Hamlet knows he's going to die soon, so he stabs the king and makes him drink some of the poison. Everyone dies, leaving Horatio standing on a stage full of corpses.
All right. So same story, basically.
Same basic story. A little more condensed here and there.
A little bit.
Yeah.
And it takes place in a theater instead of an actual, king, throne, castle, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So.
Well, the trailers make
Yeah.
this seem very much like a horror-centric portrayal of the classic play, which is why we chose to watch it. It is set in the modern age, mostly in and around a theater. There's a ghost and a murder, but the film really is not as horrific as the trailer makes it look.
No.
It's pretty straightforward other than just the weirdness. The character Hamlet is supposed to be 30 years old, and Ian McKellen, as good as he is in most things, doesn't really pull it off at 84.
I didn't think you pulled it off here.
No.
Not
Honestly, it looked like
satisfactory.
he could have used a stunt double just for doing some of those long-winded speeches a few times. And I'm not really overdoing it. I mean, I've never seen it.
There were a couple times it was really obvious.
Literally, he was out of
he
breath
was
after that
struggling
one
with it.
speech.
Yeah, it was. Well, I mean, and it was kind of sad too, because I've seen him do so many things and so many good things.
He's 84.
It made me, like old, performers, rock stars, and that are way past their prime, and you see them
He's great.
running
I like
across
him
the
in
stage,
almost
and
everything
they
I've
get out
seen.
of breath,
but,
and it made me think of that. It's like sad, like they're getting old, they're fading a little bit. Yeah.
Actually, we both expected he'd be better in a role like this. And even physical fitness aside, he mumbled a lot.
Mm-hmm.
If you know the play word for word, it's probably okay. Don't go into this expecting to understand the language or what people are saying. Also, to put the icing on the cake, there's no subtitles. And yes, we tried to get the subtitles turned on. At least not in the version we screened.
There may be versions that have it, but yeah, this one didn't. Yeah.
And it badly needed. My review probably would have been 10 notches higher if I'd understood what they were saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then the other thing here, Francesca Annis. She was Jessica in the original Dune.
I don't think I realized that.
She was the ghost here.
Okay, yes, the
She
ghost
was
of the
Ian
father.
McKellen's father.
Uh-huh.
You figured that one out.
She
was
the
his
ghost of
father,
Hamlet's
yes.
father. She was the ghost of the former king.
They couldn't find a male actor who knew this very obscure and hard-to-learn part?
There's not a lot to the part. And I think
It's somebody playing a ghost.
the ghost looked a bit androgynous.
You didn't need to see the
but
face at all.
Clearly,
no.
clearly it was a woman.
I mean, in the Laurence Olivier version, it's some kind of horror mask. It's not even a person's face.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, this is not so bad. Blind casting is a long-standing theater tradition, but this is film. It's not theater.
I think they were trying to go for that, maybe, that feel
Well, of course they were, yeah.
random casting, and yeah.
Laertes, with another female actor, is referred to as him and a true gentleman several times. I guess it's the same idea of casting an 84-year-old man as a 30-year-old kid. I mean...
Well,
now, in the modern
that's the
day
thing about theater and
with-
Shakespeare. Well, back in Shakespeare's day, too, all of these people were male actors.
Back in Shakespeare's day, women
They
weren't
only
able
had-
to be actors, or there weren't many female actors.
very
They had
few.
to deal with what they
Yeah.
had.
Yeah, mostly it was male playing male or female characters.
And I've noticed our local theater group here does the same thing. They take what they can get as far as actors.
Recently, they had a production of Hamlet where they cast a black woman as the lead.
Now, a little place like where we live, that's probably the best actor they could get for the role. This is a freaking Hollywood movie. They could have gotten a real man to play this role.
They had something in mind. Well,
And again, in the modern days, when we talk about pronouns and trans people, him and
I'm
the he
about to
may,
go into that. Yeah.
If they had gotten a male to or a female to male trans person to play the role, hey, call him. That's fine. But this was
clearly
obviously a woman.
Yeah, and they kept the gender male.
Yes.
I would have been completely fine with Laertes as a black woman.
No reason not
but
to.
fully commit.
Yeah, make it a woman.
They're sisters. That it's her. It's a true soldier.
I mean, it's hard to make the
People-
Hamlet's father into a woman. You can't do that. But Laertes, it's not that important. There's no romance or anything. It's just a character who's good with a sword.
But yeah, I think it would have been better. And there's also later there's a male military character who comes in, who is a woman.
Osric
Clearly.
again.
Oh yes, and again her. Him, sir.
And it's debatable with the Olivier version if the Osric character, Peter Cushing's character, might be a gay man.
Mm-hmm.
He certainly kind of acts that way.
He seemed kind of flamey.
But
Yeah.
this character is just a woman
Mm-hmm.
for no particular reason.
But it's a military person. Women can be in the military. Just
Make it a woman, yes.
her. There's no reason that it couldn't be a woman. Now, and I don't think there was casting a woman as Laertes in itself was bad, but I didn't like they kept him male.
If you want to gender swap them, gender swap them. Don't just
Yeah.
switch out the actors.
That's how I felt in this production.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have any trouble with, race changing or gender swapping, but come
Commit
on.
to it. Commit to it. Yeah.
Do it right.
Yeah.
Horror guy, Kevin. Okay, we covered all this already. Well, we've seen similar modern retellings of Shakespeare's plays in the past. I've always wondered about the sense in setting stories in the modern time while leaving the 400-year-old language unchanged. These people run a modern-day theater with computers and phones, and
Yeah, but if they
they're all,
update the language, then it's really not
verily and
Shakespeare
forsoothing
anymore.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it would be far more accessible the other way around. Do a period piece with modern language.
Yeah, but then it wouldn't be Shakespeare.
Yeah, well,
That's what makes it Shakespeare is the language. It wouldn't be Shakespeare enough anymore.
Y'all can't see me smirking. Oh, well. As for setting the entire production inside... This just goes on and on with complaints, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
As for setting the entire production inside a theater, that just reeks of pretentiousness. Kevin agrees with me or disagrees?
I don't think it was that. No, not to the degree that you do.
Okay.
And I don't have the... I hated it less than you do, too.
You're a theater guy, though.
Yeah, that helps.
I would have enjoyed it infinitely more if they had simply included subtitles. Maybe not, but it certainly would have made it easier to follow.
It might have.
Yeah, it's something.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway,
kind of a missed opportunity is how I feel about this one.
it could have been
so
much better
than it was. Yeah.
I don't know if it was a budget with a thing in the theater and they reused actors. I don't think it was.
I'm sure it was deliberate choices.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a reason they did all these things.
Because theater people.
They just didn't grab us.
Theater people. They're theater people.
So watch it yourselves and see what you think.
Yeah.
And you can tell us.
Yeah. Do that. Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Okay. And that's it for this episode. If you stop in over at horrorbulletin.com, you can read our review of 1960s Blood and Roses. And also, same year, The Devil's Partner.
With
Couple
an
of fun
awesome,
ones. We
with
like
an
both
awesome
of those.
but totally misleading poster.
Yeah. Stop over at hourlongpress.com and pick up Kevin's book about the Star-Spangled Banner for absolutely free until Tuesday. Or go to horrorguysshop.com and pick up any of our many horror movie-related books. Till then, I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
We'll see you next week.
See ya.